We're going to start things off with a look at a feature that's been fairly dramatically enhanced inside Photoshop CS5. Basically, the idea is you can now automatically accommodate lens distortion associated with an image. So every lens out there has some degree of distortion associated with it. That's just a fact of capturing an image. And it happens with the lenses inside of our eyes as well. It's just that our brain automatically accommodates that distortion. So as the light hits the lens, it ends up bending, basically. Then it lands on the CMOS or CCD chip. And what you may end up seeing is some degree of warping associated with what ought to be perfectly horizontal or vertical lines inside your image. Now, where this particular image is concerned, and it happens to come to us from Felix Misiaznikov of the Fotolia image library, about which you can learn more at fotolia.com/Deke. In this image, I'm seeing that we have a little bit of straightening issues. That is, the horizon is not quite exactly horizontal. However, before I fix that problem, I want to make sure that we don't have any lens distortion associated with the scene. So what I'm going to do is go up to the filter menu and choose this command right there, lens correction. And it's totally up to you how often you use this command. You could apply it to every single image right out of the gate in order to correct that image. And you may find that it provides a lot of correction or not much at all. And then you can decide what to do after that, if you tend to shoot with the same camera and the same lens on a regular basis. Anyway, let me just show it to you. Then you can decide how to use it. Go ahead and choose the command. By the way, if you have big distortion problems associated with your image, you can switch over to custom and you can hand tool the image to whatever extent you like. But the great thing inside of CS5 is that the command will do the work for you. So what you need to do is, first of all, decide whether you're going to automatically scale the image. And the answer is yes. Just go ahead and leave that checkbox turned on. And what are you going to do with any edge details that might occur? In other words, if the image has to be pinched a little inward, then Photoshop's not going to know what to do with the right-hand edge and the left-hand edge of the image, as well as the top and bottom. There's going to be undocumented pixels essentially associated with those locations. And what I suggest you do is later just go ahead and crop them away. For now, just make those edges transparent. The more important options are down here. You need to specify your make of camera, which Photoshop should determine automatically. And notice down here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, we see the camera make and model. And you may also see the lens documented, but in this case, the EXIF data does not include the lens information, so we don't know what lens was used. We know the focal length was 40 millimeters, but we don't know the exact make of lens. All right, so let's just go ahead and enter what we know into the search criteria here. We know that it was shot with a Canon camera. We know the model is an EOS 5D Mark II because that's what it says down there in the lower left corner, so I'll go ahead and select that. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave lens model set to all. You could try to figure out exactly what lens was used, but in this case, I recommend just sticking with the all setting. And notice that it has corrected for a little bit of distortion. I'll go ahead and turn off preview so we can see the original version of the image. See that the fellow's head is a little skinnier on the right-hand side than it is on the left-hand side. As soon as I turn on preview to accommodate for the distortion, the right-hand side of his head, his left-hand side, of course, widens slightly so that we have a slightly more symmetrical face, which seems to me to be a good thing. Now, you definitely want to correct for geometric distortion. Chromatic aberration, I would go ahead and let lens distortion automatically accommodate that as well, because that's kind of a pain in the neck for you to try to fix manually. I'll show you exactly how that works when we discuss Camera Raw at the end of this particular course, of the advanced course here. But basically, chromatic aberration is a misalignment of colors around the perimeter of an image. Anyway, go ahead and leave that checkbox on. That's what I would do. And then vignette, finally, you can decide whether to do it or not. Vignette would be some shading, presumably, around the outer edge of the image, and you would want to brighten that up. If that shading is caused by the lens itself, you would want to brighten that up automatically, and you can either turn this checkbox off to see if it's doing anything. In my case, it's really not, and then turn it on again. But when in doubt, just leave all three checkboxes on. That's my advice. And then click OK in order to apply that modification. So once again, it's a fairly subtle distortion here, but this is the before version of the image. If I press Control Z, Command Z on the Mac, and this is the after version of that image. After I perform that step, I would go ahead and straighten the scene. So I'll switch from my eyedropper tool over here to the ruler tool. And we saw this trick back in the fundamentals portion of this series, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again because I need to where this image is concerned. I'll go ahead and drag a line along the mean horizontal right there, along the horizon that is. And then I'll click on a straighten button in order to let Photoshop do its thing, and we now have a corrected version of that scene. And just so that you can see what we've managed to do here, all with a high degree of automation, bear in mind, I'll go ahead and press the F12 key in order to revert the image. So that was the original version of the image that I downloaded from the Fotolia image library. And this is the after version, which I get by pressing Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac. Bear in mind that you can undo a revert inside Photoshop. All thanks to the automated power of lens correction as well as the ruler tool here inside Photoshop CS5.